Well, I see my novel primarily as a novel in the grand tradition of big epic stories, not necessarily a medical novel as much as a compelling novel, I hope. So I like the kind of novels where you open the book and in a few pages you have disappeared into another world and you forget the fact that your taxes are due, the weather's bad. All of a sudden you're in this other world and you're living several lifetimes, and when you finally come out, it's only Tuesday, and you've learned all these invaluable lessons of a lifetime. So I wanted to write a book on that scale, but I wanted it to be imbued with medicine, very much like the works of Zola are all about Paris. Every page is about Paris. Every sentence smells of Paris. I wanted this to be about medicine in every aspect, every character. Well, I think twins are universally fascinating to all of us, but especially to writers. To writers, they're almost a trap. You can be tempted by twins and not be able to execute the story well. The reason they're fascinating is because twins, identical twins, are genetically identical, and it's the closest thing we have to a clone. And I think the fact that people are genetically identical and yet can be different when they grow up has to do with the fact that the environment changes people. And I really wanted to play with this idea of one twin at birth being affected by the environment in a radical way, so that they wound up being completely different, and yet at the moment that really counted, they were genetically identical. That made a big difference. So that's why I picked twins. It was, I think, a temptation, no more than that. I didn't really have a grand master plan with that. So my connection with Africa is, I think, particularly deep and tortured. I was born in Africa, born in Ethiopia, and spent all my youth there, and actually began medical school there. And the moment of dislocation for me was when, very much as in the book, when the emperor was deposed and a military government took over. Then my whole life changed. I realized that I was an expatriate. I'd never heard that word before. And I also realized that in the military government closing the school and sending students to the countryside, they didn't include me, fortunately, but it also meant that I really didn't belong there. So I left Africa, and I've been back a couple of times since to Ethiopia. Interestingly, one of my classmates from medical school, who also was forced to discontinue his studies, became a guerrilla fighter, fighting the military government, and he's now the prime minister of the country. So I went back to interview him one time. I've been back another time for an AIDS-related event. My overall sense, though, is that there's a common saying attributed to Napoleon that geography is destiny. That where you are determines your fate, and that was certainly true of me. And it's also true that if your geography is altered, then your destiny is also altered. And I think that also has played out in my life, and I very much wanted to explore that theme in the book. I also think that the television camera has taken us everywhere, into the operating theater, into Africa, into the jungle, and it gives us the illusion that we've been everywhere. And yet I think the power of a novel is that it can take you to places that you think you knew and provide a level of interpretation that the camera perhaps cannot. And so the particular joy to me writing about Africa was the ability to take the reader to something they thought they knew and reveal to them how much more complex it was than the superficial first impression. Well, I think that maybe sometimes we make too much of the fact that one is a physician and a writer. I don't find us getting as excited when someone is a lawyer and a writer, or a social worker and a writer, or a priest and a writer. But somehow being a physician evokes a lot of curiosity. Having said that, I will say that I think there's some advantages to being a physician and a writer in the sense that as an internist, which is my specialty, we are really focused on detail. We almost can't help ourselves. We're noticing, the way somebody walks, or we're noticing that one shoulder is lower than the other. We're noticing the color. I heard the expression both in writing school and in medical school that God is in the details. So I think in that sense, when a physician decides to write, there is a level of sort of inquiry and a level of inspection and interrogation that perhaps comes more naturally. But I think nothing is a given. You still have to work very hard to keep the reader's interest and keep them engaged. Well, I'm really delighted that it is a best-selling book, but I must say that although this sounds arrogant, I think when you're writing, I think you write with that kind of an ambition that you'll write a story that echoes and resonates with everybody, so that there'll be this universal appeal to the story. And nevertheless, when it happens, it's truly exciting and humbling, and even though it's what you dreamed about, most of us don't come close to achieving the things we dream about. So I'm very, very excited and humbled by it. And I'm also struck by how stories have a wonderful way of finding what is common to all of us, no matter what language we speak. And the fact that this story about brothers and about love and about betrayal should resonate in so many different countries, including Italy, makes me have great faith in the universality of the human experience. So it's been tremendous and edifying to see this.